My name is Lily, and I'm 22 years old. You might be wondering how a girl my age ends up living with her uncle, especially given the situation I'm about to share with you. Believe me, I never expected this either. I'm studying to become a graphic designer, so I spend most of my time drawing, designing, and doing freelance work. Life hasn't been easy after my parents' divorce when I was younger. I moved around a lot, trying to figure things out. Eventually, I ended up here, staying with my Uncle Mike. It wasn't planned. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can continue bringing you more fascinating true stories like this one. And don't forget to watch this video till the end because this story is going to be incredibly interesting. It all happened when my mom had to leave for work, and I needed somewhere to stay while finishing college. Michael, my uncle, was the only family member who could take me in. He's been married to his wife, Charlotte, for a few years now. They live in a nice house in the countryside, far from the city. I thought it would be just another move, living in a peaceful, quiet place for a while, but things turned out differently than I imagined. Now it's been a few months since I moved in, and I've gotten used to the house, the routine, and the calmness here. Or at least I thought I had. But today, things are different. I'm writing this because something happened. Something that started when I walked into Michael's room while he was sleeping. Before I explain, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything that happens next. Let me tell you a bit more about Michael. He's not like most uncles to me. He's always been more of a mentor than just a family member. Growing up, he taught me how to ride a bike, fix things around the house, and even gave me my first car when I turned 18. So, when my mom needed someone to take me in while she was away for work, he was the obvious choice. Mike is thoughtful, patient, and very kind. But it wasn't just him I was moving in with. His wife, Charlotte, had been in the picture for a while. They married 2 years ago, and I wasn't too sure about her at first. She's older than Michael, and there's something a bit cold about her that made me feel like an outsider in their home at first. I stayed in the guest room at the far end of the house, trying not to disturb them too much, giving them their space. But over time, things became less awkward. Charlotte started giving me some tips on cooking, cleaning, and general household things. We didn't exactly become best friends, but it wasn't as tense as before. I thought things were getting back to normal, but lately, I've noticed something I can't explain. The more time I spent with Michael, the more I started to feel drawn to him. The way he smiled at me, his hand occasionally brushing against mine, the little glances he'd give me when he thought I wasn't looking, it was different than before. Hard to describe, but I couldn't ignore it. I started to feel a growing tension between us, an energy I couldn't escape. I know what you're probably thinking, Lily. What are you talking about? He's your uncle. And I know it sounds crazy, but this feeling, this connection, is undeniable. I tried to push it away, telling myself it was just my imagination. But every time we were alone, it felt like the air was thick, like an invisible thread was pulling us closer. Now here's where things get interesting. After dinner one night, I was working on a project in my room when I heard footsteps in the hall. Michael had been napping for hours, and Charlotte was out with friends. We were alone for the evening. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I heard the door to his bedroom creak open. I froze. There was a brief moment of hesitation. I didn't know whether to leave him to rest or go inside, but something pulled me to him. I quietly opened the door, trying not to disturb him. He was lying on his back, one arm behind his head, his face relaxed in sleep. The soft light from the window cast shadows across his face, making him look peaceful, almost untouchable. I stood there for a moment, my heart racing. I could feel the blood rushing to my ears, and my cheeks getting warm. I had never felt this way before. Maybe I just wanted to look at him, or maybe I didn't know. My thoughts were interrupted when I accidentally knocked a vase off the shelf by his bed. The sound made Michael stir. His eyes fluttered open, and for a brief moment, our gazes met. I saw confusion in his eyes, but something else too, something I couldn't quite place. He blinked a couple of times, trying to focus on me, and let out a low, groggy laugh. "Lily, what are you doing in here?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to come up with a response. I didn't want to seem like I was snooping, but I didn't know how to explain myself. My mouth felt dry, and I couldn't find the words. "I didn't mean to wake you," I stammered, feeling embarrassed. Michael sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. He gave me a kind smile, the one he always gave when he was patient with me. But there was something different in his eyes today. It made my heart race. He studied me for a moment before speaking again. "It's okay," he said softly. "You know you can always come talk to me. Lily, I'm here for you." I nodded, but my mind was racing. I didn't know how to handle this strange feeling. The room felt heavy, and I could feel my breath getting faster. "I just wanted to talk," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Michael's smile faded slightly, and I thought I saw a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, but it was gone in an instant. He patted the bed next to him, motioning for me to sit down. "Come here. Then, you can always talk to me," he said again, his voice warm and inviting. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do, but something inside me urged me forward. Without thinking, I moved closer, sitting beside him. The tension between us was now palpable, thicker than ever. I could feel the heat of his body next to mine, and his subtle cologne filled the air. We were so close that I could hear his breathing and feel the rise and fall of his chest with each breath. My heart raced again, and slowly, almost in slow motion, I looked up at him. Our faces were so close that I could feel his warmth. His gaze was soft, almost uncertain, but there was something else there, something that made my skin tingle. "Lily, are you okay?" Michael asked softly. Before I could answer, my lips parted, and without thinking, I leaned in closer to him. I could feel the blood rushing to my face, and my heartbeat seemed impossibly loud. What was happening? What was I doing? I couldn't explain it, but everything felt so intense, like the air was charged with something I couldn't deny. Michael didn't pull away. His eyes searched mine with a quiet intensity. He didn't speak, but I could feel his breath quicken, just like mine. The room felt warmer. The silence between us thickened with unspoken words. My mind was a whirlwind. Everything had led to this moment, this unpredictable, inexplicable moment. I couldn't stop myself. Slowly, I leaned in, my lips trembling as they brushed against his. At first, it was tentative, a question, a hesitation. But as his lips responded, soft and gentle, I couldn't hold back anymore. My mind screamed for me to stop, but my body refused. I needed this. I wanted this. I couldn't deny it anymore. Michael's hand gently cued my cheek, urging me closer. His other hand resting beside us lightly grazed my skin. I could feel the heat of his touch, and it made my skin burn. The kiss deepened, and soon it was hard to tell where his lips ended and began. Everything outside the room disappeared. It was just the two of us, tangled in this undeniable connection. My mind raced with confusion, guilt, and an overwhelming sense of rightness. What were we doing? Why did it feel so necessary? There were no words to explain it, no logic behind it. He pulled away just for a moment, his forehead resting against mine. Our breathing was heavy, each inhale shaky, each exhale slow. I could feel his pulse against my skin, and it matched the erratic beat of my own heart. "Lily," his voice was soft, strained with something more. We shouldn't, but I wasn't sure I agreed. Something inside me refused to acknowledge any reason to stop. Slowly, I reached for his hand and threaded my fingers through his. He didn't pull away. His fingers curled around mine, as if he was holding on to me just as much as I was holding on to him. Our eyes met, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of everything hung between us. Should we? Could we? My hand instinctively moved to the back of his neck, pulling him back to me, kissing him again. This time, there was no hesitation. There was no fear, no uncertainty, just the overwhelming need to be close to him, to feel him. Michael slid down my back, pulling me closer. The contact of our bodies made everything feel impossibly intense. I didn't know where this was going, but I didn't care. There was only the moment, only the desire to stay in the space, where nothing existed except for us. My heart raced faster, pounding against my chest as his lips moved to my neck, pressing soft kisses against my skin. I could feel his breath against my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. It was unlike anything I had ever felt before, intimate, consuming, and deeply wrong in the best possible way. "You're sure about this?" he murmured against my skin, his voice thick with desire. "I don't want to hurt you." I closed my eyes, trying to find my voice. Everything inside me screamed to stop, to pull away, but I couldn't. The longing was too much. The need was too strong. I didn't want to think anymore. I didn't want to reason it out. I just wanted to be with him. "I'm sure," I whispered, my hands moving over his chest, feeling the heat of his skin beneath my fingertips. "I want this. Michael, I want you." His lips found mine again, and this time the kiss was deeper, more urgent. There was no going back now. The world outside of this room didn't matter. There was only the way he made me feel desired, needed, alive in a way I had never felt before. The room seemed to close in around us, the light dimming as the intensity of our connection grew. Every touch, every kiss felt like a promise of something more, something we couldn't explain, but we were both so willing to explore. I could feel his heartbeat, steady and sure, matching the rhythm of mine, though part of me still fought against the reality of what was happening. A much larger part of me surrendered completely. I wasn't just kissing him anymore. It was more than that. It was a connection I couldn't describe, a bond that went beyond words, beyond explanations. "I've wanted this for so long," Michael said softly, his breath hot against my lips. I could barely comprehend his words as my hands roamed over him, feeling the muscles in his chest, the heat of his skin, the way he responded to me. But there was no turning back now. There was only the pull between us. The way we seemed drawn to each other in a way neither of us had ever expected. Time seemed to stand still as we lost ourselves in each other, in the quiet rhythm of our kisses, the warmth of our touches. And for the first time, everything felt right. The quiet stillness of the room felt different now. We were no longer uncle and niece. We were just two people connected by something deeper, something far more intense than anything I had ever known before. The air between Michael and I hung thick with tension. Neither of us moving, neither of us speaking. The silence was suddenly shattered by the sound of the front door opening downstairs. Both of us froze. My heart raced in my chest, and I quickly pulled away from Michael, panic seizing me. What had we just done? What was happening between us? The guilt washed over me, but it was mingled with something else. A desire I couldn't ignore. I could feel the weight of it. The push and pull between what we had just shared and the reality that we were so deeply entangled in something we couldn't easily untangle. Michael didn't move immediately. His gaze was fixed on me, but his expression was unreadable. I could feel the heat between us, the lingering closeness that hadn't yet dissipated. "Lily," he whispered, his voice strained. But before he could say anything more, the sound of footsteps echoed up the stairs. Michael heard a voice. I instantly recognized it. My heart dropped into my stomach. It was Charlotte. I quickly jumped off the bed, my breath coming in short. Sharp gasps. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced in every direction, but I couldn't come up with an answer that would make sense. Was I really going to face her after what had just happened? The door to Michael's room creaked open, and there she was, Charlotte, standing in the doorway with a surprised look on her face. Her eyes flicked between Michael and me, confusion flickering across her features as she took in the scene. "Lily, Michael, what's going on here?" she asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. But there was something else too, an intuition perhaps. That something was amiss. I could feel the blood drain from my face. Charlotte's presence was like a cold shower, and all at once everything felt wrong. There was no way to explain this. No way to justify what had just happened between Michael and me. My throat felt tight, and I struggled to find my voice. I stammered, not sure what to say. "Michael, sitting up on the bed now, his expression blank, seemed equally at a loss. His hand rubbed the back of his neck, clearly embarrassed, but not sure how to explain either. Charlotte's gaze shifted to him, then back to me. There was an unspoken understanding between us, something that neither of us was ready to confront. It was as though, in that single moment, everything shifted. Charlotte knew something was happening, something that wasn't supposed to be, but her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of anger or disappointment, there was only a deep, unsettling sadness in her eyes. She walked into the room, closing the door behind her. Her presence was commanding, and there was an odd stillness in the room now, like the calm before a storm. "Lily, you need to understand something," Charlotte said softly, her voice surprisingly gentle. "There's more to this than you realize, more than either of you understand." I looked at her, confusion flooding me. What did she mean? What more was there? The silence in the room felt heavier after Charlotte left. Her words had left an imprint on both of us. And while there was still so much confusion, her understanding and offer of guidance had given me something I hadn't expected: hope. Charlotte wasn't angry. She wasn't ready to cast us aside. She was giving us a chance that felt fragile and uncertain, but still there. I glanced at Michael. His face was still a mixture of guilt, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite place. He was avoiding my gaze now, his hands nervously rubbing together. I knew he felt the weight of what had happened, the way our worlds had collided in the most unexpected and complicated way. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that none of this had been anyone's plan. Things had unfolded in a way that was beyond any of our control. The only thing I knew for certain was that we couldn't ignore it. We couldn't pretend like nothing had happened. Charlotte was right about that. The feelings, the confusion, it all had to be addressed. And it had to be faced. There was no running from it. "Michael," I whispered, my voice shaking slightly. "What do we do now?" Michael looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of emotions. "I don't know, Lily. I don't know what to feel, what to think. I don't know if I should be angry or ashamed, or if I'm allowed to feel anything at all." His voice cracked with vulnerability, and I could hear the internal struggle in his words. He was a man torn between the deep connection we'd shared and the loyalty he had to Charlotte, his wife, my aunt. This was the kind of situation that couldn't just be sorted out in one conversation. It wasn't that simple. I took a deep breath and walked toward him, the space between us closing slowly. I wanted to reach out to him, to hold him, but I didn't know if that was the right thing to do. I didn't know what was right anymore. "I don't think we're going to figure everything out right now," I said softly, "but I think we need to talk, to be honest with each other. This is too complicated to ignore." Michael nodded slowly, his face serious but not angry. "Yeah, I know. I just don't know where to even start." I took a step closer, my heart racing but my voice steady. "We start by admitting what happened, what we felt, what we still feel, and then we figure out what comes next." He nodded again, his expression softening just a little. "It's not going to be easy, Lily, but I want to understand. I want to understand what's happening between us." I took his hand, the contact both comforting and charged with unspoken emotion. "I don't have all the answers, Michael. I don't know what happens next, but I'm not running from this. Not anymore." We sat in silence for a moment, each of us lost in our own thoughts, trying to process the overwhelming complexity of the situation. There was no clear path forward, no map to guide us through the maze of emotions, guilt, and confusion. But what Charlotte had offered us was something that felt like a lifeline: the freedom to face this together, to confront the messy, tangled web of feelings that had caught us in its grip. I looked at Michael again. His eyes met mine, and in that moment, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it with honesty. There was no perfect answer, no easy fix, but there was a chance for healing, for understanding, and maybe, just maybe, something more. As I leaned back, my mind racing with possibilities, I couldn't help but think of Charlotte, what she had said. Her calm, maternal guidance had opened a door that I hadn't known existed. She hadn't rejected us. She hadn't condemned us. Instead, she had given us room to breathe, to work through the complexities of what had happened. But what would happen next? What would Charlotte say if we told her how deeply we still felt? Would it be too much? Would she ever truly forgive us? But those were questions for another time. Right now, it was just Michael and me, sitting in the silence of our shared uncertainty, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The only thing we could do was take the next step, whatever that might be, and somehow, together, we would figure it out.